Okay, so this is a 1998 Subaru Legacy Outback, and I've been noticing over time there's this loud clacking. It sounds a little bit like lifter noise. Not exactly sure what it is, but I'm going to try to see whether it's the valve clearance. But here, let's take a look at what it sounds like. Clicking a lot for the next, I don't know, the next probably 10 minutes. It doesn't sound too bad, but I'm a little bit worried that it might have some valve clearance issues. So that's what I'm going to work on today. But anyways, it's kind of a big project, but this is what we have to start. So in regards to removing the windshield wiper fluid thing, one of the things you can get stuck on is like these little tabs in here. You actually have, there's like a little thing that kind of locks underneath that tab, and you actually have to get a screwdriver and undo that. Okay, if you don't have a screwdriver to undo the little tab under there, and you're just trying to wiggle it, it just doesn't work. Okay, alright, bye. So I just pulled out the spark plugs. You're going to have to pull out the spark plugs to take off the valve covers. One of the things you're going to have to realize is like the spark plugs are very difficult to remove. So what I do is I take a piece of like just safety wire and I wrap it around the spark plug 2 or 3 times, and then I use that to pull the spark plug out. There probably is a special tool that you can use to take the spark plugs out in Subarus, but I don't own the special tool, and that's the way I've just always done it. So I don't actually have the spark plug wires removed, but I could if I wanted to at this point. I think what I'm going to probably do is try to wait to remove the valve covers. Okay? Alright, talk to you later. Bye. Okay, so I removed the mass airflow sensor and like this whole assembly. And so the way to do that is there's like a little catch right there. And you basically have to press down on this tab really hard and then just wiggle it. So unless your tab's broken, mine isn't yet, but anyways, that's the way it works. And now I'm going to take out these spark plugs. So here's the setup I use to remove the spark plugs. You have a wire wrapped around the spark plug several times, and basically you just pull that, and it has worked pretty well in the past. I mean, for the past other 2 spark plugs. I have used this piece of rope, but it just doesn't work as effectively. So that's the way I remove the spark plugs. So let's give this a try. There you go. So crack very well around that. Make really take really good care that you know exactly which cylinder each spark plug wire goes to. Just remember that. Okay, you have to keep track of those. Just basically put a piece of tape around each one and write on it. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Okay, talk to you later. Bye. Okay, so this is removing the passenger side valve cover. There's a little bit more room where the passenger side valve cover is than there is for the driver's side. So the driver's side is actually a bear to get out. It's really kind of tough and a nasty deal. But anyways, I'm going to take this one off, and we'll get to see what is down there. All right, bye. Okay, so these are the camshafts. I just took off the driver's side valve cover, and nothing really too particular. Just, you know, these are the camshafts. The valve cover required 6 10mm bolts, and they were actually pretty easy to take out. And basically all you have to do is once you take out those 6 bolts, just kind of very gently wiggle the valve cover, and it should come off, and you should be fine. Alright, talk to you later. It does drip a little bit of oil, but I have already drained the oil in this engine, so it wasn't really all that much. So that's all there is to that. Okay, so notice I have the valve cover basically off, but the problem is that there's actually not enough clearance to actually take off the valve cover just like this, because there's a little bolt that is sticking out, allow me to take off the valve cover. But it's that bolt right there on that cam. So kind of a pain in the neck, but it's kind of like life. Alright, bye. Okay, so here's the second valve cover. I actually did not have to loosen one of the engine mounts. All I had to do was I put a board under the oil pan, and then jacked up the car a little bit. That lifted the engine a little bit, and it was enough for me to wiggle the valve cover out. I did have to remove this stem here. It's kind of obvious that you have to do that because this hose right here is blocking removal of the valve cover. So you actually have to remove that stem. There really is not as much room on this side, but there are the cams right there, and everything. And so it was kind of tough getting this one off, but you just have to remember, in order for there to be enough clearance, you have to lift the engine up a little bit. I have it jacked up just a little bit, and basically what I did is I put a board underneath the oil pan, and then just lifted it up a little bit, and that was enough to allow me to wiggle it free from there. So it's a really tight spot in there, so just remember that. Alright, so okay, I'm gonna probably work on this more tomorrow, but I have the valves all exposed and everything, and so, well, all the camshafts exposed, and so it should be a little bit of a job, probably a big job, but doable. Alright, bye. By the way, you are going to want to remove the battery when you remove the valve cover. Just makes it so much easier when you're trying to get the valve cover off. It's a tough enough job as it is. Anyways, bye. So now, in order to do the valve clearance adjustment, I have to remove the 2 timing belt covers. Well, not the middle timing belt cover, but the driver's side and passenger side timing belt cover. They're held on by 3 bolts, which are located here. I've already removed one right there, and in the middle you can sort of should be able to see the hole. Yeah, right there in the center. Should be able to see the hole. Then one way at the bottom. And this is the same for both timing belt covers. On this one, I'm actually going to remove the burp tank, which is here. And I'm in the process of removing it right now, and that will allow me to have a little bit more space in order to get that third bolt. Alright, bye. Okay, so I got the driver's side timing belt cover off by removing the burp tank. There was actually enough room to remove it. However, on the passenger side, there is part of the fan that's blocking the removal of the timing belt cover. So I'm going to have to remove the fan in order to take this timing belt cover off, which is kind of okay because I could use some more room in there. Anyways, alright, talk to you later, bye. So just a little thing about these electrical connectors. So on the mass airflow sensor, when you take it off, you have to press down this tab very hard. Okay, this tab right here. This one. However, on these fan connectors, it takes a little while if you haven't haven't worked on them very much. But this tab, this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like normally. I mean, with it disconnected. This little tab here, you actually have to lift it up. So I'll try to give you an example. But yeah, this little tab right here, you gotta lift it up. Okay, and so for this one, you lift it up and then pull. I'm going to try to do that with a camera on my head. No, that's not going to work. But you lift up this tab and then you pull it out. It's almost one hand deal. But I can't do it. Sorry. I'm trying to hold a flashlight and speak at the same time. But you lift up that little tab and then that electrical connector will come right out. Don't spend a lot of time being frustrated on it like I did the last time when I was tearing this thing apart a couple years ago. So that's the way it works. Alright, bye. Okay, so here we are with both timing belt covers off, both valve covers removed. So it took me about, here. Oh crap. 2:07 a.m. Okay. So I've been working on this since about 9. So to get to this point has been about 5 hours. But I work pretty slow and really careful. I don't break things very much. But anyways, so both timing belt covers are off. I also changed the oil. There's actually no oil in here now. That kind of helped me because I think it made the valve covers not drip as much as they wanted to. But anyway, so I am ready to adjust the valves, and I can probably do that tomorrow. I'll line up the marks and start measuring valve clearances. It's kind of been a bear of a job, but hopefully it'll be worth doing. Hopefully, well, hopefully they won't be off, but they might be. So, all right, bye. Okay, so I got a big, beautiful fire roaring, and this is my second day working on my valve clearance adjustment in here in Bozeman, Montana. So what I've done is I'm getting ready to measure the valve clearances, and so I have removed all the fans and everything that I need to remove. So here I have a big wrench, a big ratchet on the crankshaft pulley, which is right there. And what I've done is I've turned the engine until the arrow is at the 2:30 o'clock position. Basically, what you're going to need to do is get a Haynes repair manual, and it'll tell you exactly where to put the timing. I mean where to put the engine, because you can't just go ahead and measure the valve clearances, because that's too simple. You actually have to measure the valve clearances when the pistons are at a certain are in a certain position. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to check the exhaust valve with a well, it's a .010 or 0.25 millimeter feeler gauge. And so the specs for the exhaust valve and the intake valve are .010 inches, which also equals about 2.5 millimeters. So that's the spec for the exhaust valve, and then for the intake valve, which is up on the top here. So just remember your exhaust valves are on the bottom, and your intakes are on the top. So for your intake valve, the spec is .008 inches. And I forget what that is in millimeters, but it should be on your feeler gauge when you have them. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. So let's go ahead and try to see whether the exhaust valves are in spec. So I can't actually fit a feeler gauge in that one or in that one. So it looks like these valves are indeed out of spec. Over time, what happens is the intake valves generally end up with more clearance than they're supposed to, and the exhaust valves generally end up with less clearance than they're supposed to, which is the case here. And so what will happen eventually is the exhaust valve clearance will get so small that eventually there will be no clearance at all, and in that case the exhaust valve will burn up, and you'll need to do a new valve job, which will cost about $1,500 probably. So it's kind of an expensive thing, which is why I'm doing this here. All right, talk to you later. Bye. Okay, so basically, to check the first set of valves, what you have to do is make sure that the left set of camshaft sprockets looks about like that. Okay, so you have your arrow right there, and it's pointing. I think it's 2:30 o'clock, but you have to look at the Haynes repair manual. I just looked at these valves, and basically it's relatively simple. you just insert a feeler gauge in between here. Okay. And this one won't do it, but you can stack the feeler gauges on top of each other, check the clearance. So you want to check the clearance within about a 10,000th of an inch. Well, 5/10,000ths of an inch. So I have the gosh. 0.007 feeler gauge stacked on top of the 0.0025 to check the exhaust valves. So that should give me 0.0095. So that's within about 5/10,000ths of an inch. All right, bye. Okay, so we measured all the valve clearances, and now what we're going to do is replace some of the shims. And the way you do that is by using these lifters and kind of like depressing them and then removing the shims. I'm still not exactly sure how to do all this, but I have a special removal tool. It feels like I'm actually moving that lifter around with my finger. Let's see. Yeah, I can actually move that lifter all around. So, alright, that rotates perfectly easy. So it says that I rotate the notch in the lifter out 45 degrees. I don't actually see a notch or anything on this lifter. So maybe they're wrong, or maybe I need to keep on looking. Oh, alright. There's a notch. So that notch needs to be rotated out 45 degrees. So it is on both of these. The notch is rotated out. Okay. Now what we have to do is attach the removal tool. So this is the removal tool, the pieces of it. It cost me about $130 on eBay. I mean, I would probably be willing to rent it to you for cheaper than that. Brand new, it's about $220. Anyways, here we go. Okay, hey Chris. Quit. How I could. Hop. Okay, these prongs will go right in between over the bolts. It'll go like that'll go right there, like that. I'll take this piece. And insert it there. This hole. Insert a roll. And hand tighten probably. Doesn't need to be that high, I don't think. Yeah, there's that. So the tool is securely on the camshaft and everything. And so now what you have to do is take the bolt . Insert a hole there. So that's the complete setup, and then we can use the bolt, and if we screw in the bolt with a ratchet, it will press those valve lifters. Alright, I hope that's kind of like self-explanatory. It should work. So what I have to do is to press those lifters and remove the valve shims. Alright, bye for now. So this is a valve shim. So this one was out of spec by about 1.5. Sorry, about 1.5. No, sorry, like 1.5 thousandths of an inch. So not really all too much. Notice like it says a 5 on it, I think, and so. So basically, or maybe it's 225. I don't know, but this is the valve shim size for. The valve shim for the #1 exhaust valve. And so I used that little tool and removed it. And I used a pair of tweezers, and I actually had to grind down these tweezers, the tips of them, in order to remove the shim. And so I had to depress the using the little tool. I had to depress it the whole way. So anyways, that worked though. Anyways, I'll talk to you later and have a good day. That's a valve shim, not a $20 gold piece. Alright, bye. So here's the here's the valve shim clearly labeled. I will avoid the writing when I measure it, and the reason why is because if you have writing on the shim, the micrometer will actually measure. I mean, the little bit of ink on the valve shim will actually affect the reading, so don't think it won't. So here's the valve shim. It looks like what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the I'm going to replace 4 exhaust valve shims. All of the exhaust valve shims except the ones away from that were located away from the firewall toward the front of the car were all in spec. Well, they were all within about approximately 1/1000th of an inch of where they needed to be. The valve shims that were away from the farthest away from the firewall toward the front of the vehicle were all out of spec about 0.02 of an inch. So I probably don't really need to replace these valve shims, but since I already have the vehicle torn apart, I'm going to go ahead and do it anyways. It looks to me like most of the shims were within approximately a thousandth of an inch away from where they needed to be. So generally, on like all the intakes and everything, they were all basically all in spec. So I had a little scare with this special tool down here that's mounted on the kind of like mounted on the camshaft, and basically there's this little bolt right here right there that holds this tool on, okay, right there, alright, and basically you want to make sure that's screwed in all the way, and that it's really is pretty tight. So when you actually screw in the main bolt, you actually don't want to screw it in very far, because then basically the little edge of the tool will slip off the lifters, and then it won't be depressing them anymore, and it'll kind of wear out the tool a little bit. So so basically this is a really nifty tool, but you have to realize it's kind of like a little bit interesting to work with. But make sure you screw in that little bolt, and make sure that thing's on there really tight before you start turning the main bolt, and just turn the main bolt just barely enough for you to get the shim out. Okay? Alright, bye. Okay, so this is a digital micrometer that I got from work. As you see, it's capable of going down to approximately 1/100th of a millimeter, which I think is pretty cool. So it's accurate down to 1/100th of a millimeter, and basically what we have to do is put the valve shim in the caliper and kind of like crunch it down. I want to try to avoid the writing. Oh, and you're going to want to clean off the I guess you can tell I'm not married. Clean off whatever oil or grime or on the valve shim, and then go ahead and clamp her down. Okay. I'm But as I mentioned, this caliper is capable of going down to approximately 1/100th of a millimeter. And so we have, for this shim, it's 2.49 millimeters in diameter. Alright, bye. Alright, so we're about ready to put in a valve shim. And basically we have the same setup as before. We've got the special tool on there, and we're going to just depress the lifters a little bit, and then try to fit that valve shim in. Now, one thing that is worth mentioning that we have to do is we actually have to rotate the camshafts so that the lobe of the camshaft is away from where the lifter is. So we have to do that. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do that. Oh, I don't know how to. Go. There we go. There. So we have the camshafts rotated away, and now it's we're going to depress that lifter, and then go ahead and put that a valve shim in there. Okay, so you see how that that lifter is actually not it is so we need to lift kind of like move around the tool to make sure it gets on that lifter edge, or else we won't be able to put the valve shim in. So remember, you have to have that the edge of the lifter contacted by the special tool. Alright, talk to you later. Alright, bye. Okay, so we have the tool partially depressing the lifter, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to kind of like wedge that valve shim in there. And the important thing to remember is that you want to put the same side of the valve shim that you put in. You got to put it in the same way. So this is a used valve shim. This one will fit in this lifter, and it'll be fine. So this one's exactly the one that I would need. So this was 2.43 millimeters. And that's what I need. So you can move around valve shims and from one set to the other in order to not have to buy them. They're about $11 a piece, so kind of spendy little buggers. Alright, so here we go. We're gonna go try to put this thing in. Okay, there it is. It's halfway inserted, and it actually needs to be fully inserted. I'll probably have to screw it down a little bit more, but Basically that's the process. You just put that shim in like that. Alright, talk to you later. Bye. So one thing you need to do when you're using this tool is press down press down using the tool, and then tighten the bolt as tight as you can get. Make sure that the little tool is not actually the jaws for the little tool are actually on the valve lifter and can press down. So make sure that you have this bolt right here really tight, almost as tight as you can get it. I mean, don't strip it out, but I mean, you can get it really tight without it getting stripped. So in case you were wondering. So maybe about 50, 60, 70 foot-pounds of torque, maybe a little bit more. I don't know. I just hand tightened it, but you want that to be really tight. Anyways, I just got in all the valve shims on this side, and I'm gonna probably cover this thing up and well, first of all, I'll check all the valve clearances. I'll cover this thing up, and then we'll start working on the other side. Alright, bye. Okay, so just a quick comment. Before you put on the tool, you're going to want to rotate the engine. I have a wrench on the crankshaft, and so I've been using that to turn the engine the whole time. And basically what you want is you want the camshafts, the lobes, pointing as far away from the lifter as possible. It doesn't necessarily need to be exact, and you probably could not take the timing belt covers off. The timing belt covers off, and just do it this way. It would probably work. If you're a newbie and you're a little bit worried, go ahead and take the timing belt covers off. But basically what you want is that lobe pointing directly away from that from the lifter. Alright, and just make sure you rotate the engine before you start using the tool. Alright, bye. So before you start using this little tool, make sure that it's got the edge of the little tool mechanism next, like right on the valve lifter. Right, bye. Okay, so this is the valve cover. It's just about on. Make sure all the gaskets, the rubber gaskets, are in the exactly right position. So that way you don't end up with oil leaking all over the place and problems, and have to replace that, that side of the valve cover and whatnot. So don't do that. Make sure it's really it's in there and it's in good. One thing that I did is I just kept on pressing the rubber valve seal into that groove, and I just kept on pressing it and pressing it and pressing it until it finally just went in there and stayed in. So, alright, bye. So you remember how I told you that I couldn't figure out how to get the spark plugs without pulling them out with that wire type thing? Well, the way to actually remove the spark plugs and everything is actually to jack up the engine a little bit by putting a board under the oil pan, and then you'll have plenty of room to pull the spark plug wires out. So this is what happened to the spark plug wire. Like this was actually stuck on the end of the spark plug, and so basically now I have to get new plug wires, which aren't too expensive or anything, and everything. But so that's going to set me back a little bit. But yeah, the way to remove the spark plugs is actually to put a board underneath the engine, kind of like what I have right there, and I mean, put it right underneath the oil pan. It's not going to hurt the oil pan, okay? And just jack it up a little bit. That'll lift the engine up a little bit, and you'll be able to get to the spark plugs pretty easy. All right, bye. So just in case you were wondering, I actually decided to remove the spark plugs since I was already there and they hadn't been changed in about 40,000 miles. So this is actually the way to remove the spark plugs. You take the spark plug, the spark plug nut thing, socket thing, and then you put a small, I don't know, probably 2-inch extension, and then put your ratchet, and that's all you really need to do. And that's how you get the spark plug in and out. All right, bye.